In this tutorial, you're going to learn all about the Cubase project window. This will be the first screen that you see when you load the software, and it's where you gain access to most of the important controls and features, and it's where you can actually set up the structure of your songs. The project window can be thought of in four main areas. At the top of the screen are the various menus and the Cubase toolbar. On the left-hand side, we have the track inspector. To the right of that is a track list. And on the right-hand side of the screen is the main project arrange area. This is where you place audio and MIDI events and create the structure of your music. Let's now look at the toolbox area first. The first button on the top left is the Activate Project button. This allows you to ensure that the Cubase project that you're working with is activated, so that when you press play on the transport bar, this is the project that you'll hear being played back. You must remember that you can open more than one Cubase project simultaneously, but only one of them can be activated. The next button is the Show Inspector button. This allows you to view or hide the track inspector. Most of the time, you'll have this turned on so that you can see the track inspector. There are times when you may want to hide this in order to gain extra valuable screen space. The next button is the Show Event Info line. When this is turned on and I click on an audio event, you can see various information displayed in the info line, such as ride hi-hat audio, its start position, its end position, its length, and so forth. The next button is the Show Overview. This creates a new line of information that's very useful when you have large Cubase projects lasting several minutes. This allows you to quickly navigate around the song and gives you a bird's eye perspective of the overall structure. The next button opens the pool. You can think of the pool as a large filing cabinet in which you can store all of your audio files and clips and any video files that you're using when working with moving images. The pool is a very useful function within Cubase, as it allows you to check lots of information about your audio files and the audio file paths to show you where the audio material is stored on your computer. For example, here, this shows me the file path to my audio files. The next button opens the Cubase mixer. You can see here I've got the basic mixer all in narrow view with a main stereo output bus on the right-hand side. You can also open the mixer using the Devices menu and clicking on the mixer, or by pressing F3 on the computer keyboard. The next section of the toolbar is a mini transport bar. This provides you with some basic transport controls to allow you to quickly navigate around your Cubase projects. We have a return to previous marker, go to next marker, cycle, stop, play, and record. This is really useful when you've actually minimized the main Cubase transport bar to save space on the screen, as it still allows you to play and record with the software. The next section of the toolbar is probably the most important, as it contains all of the useful tools. This gives you access to all of the editing and manipulation tools that allow you to create music within Cubase. The first tool is the Object Selection tool. This is the least destructive tool, and the one that you should return to between editing stages. You'll notice there's a little drop-down arrow at the bottom right-hand corner of this tool, and this gives you access to three different types of object selection: normal sizing, sizing moves contents, and sizing applies time stretch. The next tool is the Range Selection tool. This allows you to select a range of bars across one track or across several tracks. For example, in this Cubase project, I've selected a series of bars across 4 different tracks. Bars that are selected with the Range Selection tool are changed to a turquoise colour. The next tool is the Scissors tool or the Split tool for cutting audio and MIDI events. I select the tool, click within a MIDI or audio event, at a specific position, and you'll notice that it's now divided into two separate audio events. The glue tube is the opposite to the scissors tool and joins the two events back together. If we click on the left-hand event, you'll now see that the right-hand event is joined to it and the two events function together. The next tool is the eraser tool or rubber tool, and this is for deleting or erasing audio and MIDI events on the project window. If I click on an event, it's now deleted. Don't panic if you erase something accidentally, because you can use the Ctrl and Z function to undo the deletion, and it will bring back the event onto the project window. Sometimes it's actually more effective to use the object selection tool, select the event, and then use the delete key on the computer keyboard to erase a particular event. The next tool is the zoom tool. This is very useful when you want to see a particular event in greater detail. For example, if we look at this sax solo event here, if we click with the zoom tool, you can see that Cubase is now zooming in, and we can start to see the waveform in greater and greater detail. If I use one of the modifier key of Alt or Option on the keyboard and click on it again, you'll notice it does the opposite and zooms back out. There's also a nice tool contained within Cubase which allows you to very quickly click within the ruler area of the project window and drag down to zoom in and drag up to zoom out. This is a really quick and easy tool to gain an overview or detailed editing of the tracks and events on the project window. The next tool is the Time Warp tool. This is quite an advanced feature of Cubase and allows you to create tempo maps where positions in bars and beats can be made to fit specific positions in timecode. This allows you to create flexible tempo maps throughout the duration of your piece of music. The next tool is the pencil or the draw tool and allows you to draw in continuous controller data within one of the editors. The line tool provides the ability to draw in straight lines or curves or ramps, again within things like the key editor and the list editor. The next tool is the play tool. Shows a little speaker icon and allows you to click on an individual MIDI or audio event, and Cubase will play that particular event in solo from that point. You'll notice that just that track is played from that position. So it moves the cursor and solos the event. So if I click on the bass here, you can now hear the bass playing. If I click on the drop down arrow in the bottom right hand corner of the tool, I can now select the scrub tool. This allows me to select a particular point in a audio or MIDI event and drag the cursor to the left or right to home in on a very specific location where I may want to insert a cut. Listen to this. If I now zoom in a little bit more by clicking in the ruler and dragging down, I can use the tool again to really find a very accurate position within the waveform. This is a really great tool for finding highly precise positions within waveforms. Finally, we have the color tool. This allows you to color individual audio or MIDI events on a track or entire tracks. For example, we may want to actually colour our guitar riff here. So we select the colour tool, and then in the little icon at the bottom, we can select a specific colour, and then I can now click within the audio event. Our guitar riff 1 is now blue. This is particularly useful when you want to define sections or structures of your music or specific takes within a large audio track. We can now look at the remaining set of controls within the toolbar. Firstly, we have the auto scroll button. This turns on the auto scroll feature. This ensures that the project cursor is always within view. If I turn off the auto scroll and play back from bar 34, you'll notice that the project cursor falls off the screen. And we can no longer see what's going on. If we now play from bar 32 with the auto scroll function turned on, you'll notice that Cubase repositions the screen to ensure that the cursor is always in view. This is a really useful tool for ensuring that we can always see the project cursor. The next tool is the snap. This allows you to ensure that when we move an event on a track within the project window, it moves by a predetermined amount. We can snap to a grid, and this means that the bars and beats grid within the project window becomes the positions at which we can move events to and from. We can then choose to snap to bar, which means that if I select this snare kick audio event here and I move it to the right, I can only now move it to individual bar positions, and Cubase displays the position with a little pop-up box. This means I can't accidentally place it out of time. If I want a greater level of accuracy or detail, I can set this to beat, and now I can move the event at beat intervals. If I expand the view, you'll be able to see here I can move this audio event at beat positions. If you need even greater detail, you can set this to the use quantize value, and now you can move this to the value of the quantize that's set in the third drop-down column. Here you have a whole range of different settings, from standard quarter eighth notes to triplets and dotted values. Let's now set this to bar, which should be the safest option that you normally work with. That's the Cubase toolbar. Let's now have a look at the track column. You can see in this example, I have a series of different sorts of tracks. At the top, we have a marker track. Marker tracks allow us to insert marker points at specific positions within the song. For example here, the intro, the refrain, the chorus, and so forth. These allow you to navigate around your Cubase project very easily. Tracks 1 through to tracks 5, these are all audio tracks. They're blue, and you can see a waveform icon in the left-hand side. Tracks 6 and 7 are instrument tracks, they're green, and they have the little keyboard icon. Tracks 8 through to 12 are again audio tracks. And at the bottom of the screen, track 13 is an effects channel track. And this one contains a Roomworks reverb plugin. In order to add a new track, you can simply select a position within the track list, right mouse click, choose the Add Track command, and then choose whichever type of tracks you want to add from the sub-menu. Alternatively, you can go to the Project menu, choose the Add Track command, and then select the type of tracks from the drop-down list. If you drag the bottom of the track, it will actually reposition itself and extend the vertical height of the track. This gives you access to more buttons. The most important buttons that you're going to use regularly are the Record Enable button. This ensures that when you put Cubase into record, any track with the Record Enable set to on will actually record. At the end of a recording, you should always turn the Record Enable button off. The M and S buttons here control mute for the entire track, so it will mute all the events that are on that track. And when you click on the S, it solos this entire track, which means that everything else within the Cubase project is muted. It's also possible to create mini mixes by soloing more than one track. For example, here I could solo all of the drum tracks. Now Cubase will only play back these 3 soloed drum tracks. The R and W buttons within the track control the automation. The R button reads recorded automation data, and when you want to create new automation data, you click on the W button to write automation. If neither of the buttons are turned on, Cubase will ignore any automation data that's been recorded for the track. Let's now have a look at the track inspector on the left-hand side. Remember that the track inspector is turned on and off by this button. You'll notice that when I select a track, the inspector changes accordingly. Here I have the snare kick audio track, and that's displayed at the top of the track inspector. If I select the lead track, you'll now see that it changes to the lead track inspector. With audio tracks, the inspector gives us access to the input and output buses, so that I can select the physical input and output ports on my hardware. So if I click in this box, I can see the available inputs like this. And if I click on the output box, I can now choose whichever physical output I've set up within Cubase to send the audio signal to. If I select an instrument track, you'll see now that I gain access to the VST instrument setup button. I have an edit instrument button here. This allows us to open up the Halion 1 editing window here, and I can select the sound frame window and make changes to the presets or any of the other controls. All of the other elements of the track inspector, whether it be audio or instrument tracks, can be selected by clicking on the various tabs. To go back to the main one, just click at the top of the screen. If we want to view the audio channel settings window for a specific track, whether that be audio or an instrument track, simply click on the Edit Channel Settings button at the top of the inspector. This will bring up this audio channel settings window here. We've got access to the inserts on the left, the EQ at the bottom, and the auxiliary sends on the right hand side. You'll also notice that there's a duplicate of the channel fader and the input-output connections at the top right. So this is the Cubase project window. If you press F2 on your computer keyboard, it will display the transport bar. This can be positioned at any point on top of the window, or if you're running with two monitors, on a second monitor. At any time you can hide this by again pressing F2. In the centre we have the transport buttons, go to previous marker, rewind, fast forward, go to next marker, cycle, stop, play and record. We have the primary time display and the secondary time display. The primary time display here is set up to show bars and beats, and the secondary time display is set up to show timecode. You can change these by clicking on the crotchet icon or the little clock icon. To the right of this is where we gain access to the metronome or the click and turn it on/off, and the pre-count on or off. This is an important button which makes sure that you get a count in of 2 bars before you start recording. The tempo of the project can be set up in the transport bar here, along with the time signature. This means that there will be one fixed tempo and time signature for the entire Cubase project. On the left-hand side of the time displays are the left and right locators. These allow you to identify 2 different positions within the Cubase project and then use the cycle mode to loop between these 2 points. Finally, we have the Show Markers and Jump to Marker section. These are particularly useful when you've created a marker track and set up marker points to identify specific sections of your song. If you click on one of these buttons, you can see that the Cubase cursor will jump to that marker position. So if we click on marker position 2, you'll see that the cursor jumps to 2, then 3, 4, 5, and so forth. This is the Cubase project window. It's where you'll spend an awful lot of your time creating, editing, and shaping your individual creative projects. Let's conclude by just having a little listen to this song.